Hi, this is Joe Anderson, Principal and Fractional Chief Risk Officer with Fortify Risk Management, and you are here with the Strategic Risk Mind podcast. Welcome. It's our privilege today to be talking with Terry Evans, a good friend of mine, and one of our consultants with Fortify Risk Management. And Terry has a long history as a risk manager, as a safety director, as an industrial hygiene specialist in this field. And I'm just fascinated to hear from him about his background, but also we're going to be talking about claims war stories. Now, who doesn't like to hear about claims war stories? So this is going to be fun. Terry's going to give us some lessons learned. So we're super excited to have you, Terry. And if you can just start off with giving us a little bit about yourself, what you like to do for fun, a little bit about your background in the business, that would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, no, glad to be here. Glad to be a part of the team and getting a chance to talk about this stuff. I started out my career in safety about 28 years ago. I began with as a loss control consultant for some of the major work comp carriers in the business. Stayed in that practice for a while as both a loss control consultant and a risk manager, and then an industrial hygienist as well. Really afforded me the opportunity to see a whole bunch of different industries and just about every kind of management style. Something I tell every person who gets into safety, I said, do a couple years as a loss control consultant so that you get to see and have the experience of many different industries and many different management styles. It'll really up your game as a safety professional further on down your career.
Terry, give us an estimate. How many different companies did you help as a loss control specialist while you're working with some of these brokers?
Wow. So I think, typically I would have a book of clientele, probably around 60 clients a year for the major carriers, and then transitioned after that into just being the safety director for single companies and things like that.
So and how many years were you doing the brokerage side?
I'd say roughly half, so probably looks like about 14 years.
Yeah, think about this, 14 years, you got some turnover in there. He's probably talking to a couple hundred organizations at least.
Throughout, at least.
Throughout that. And then with large organizations, as a safety director, really looking at big projects, looking at lots of people involved. It's just a fascinating background. And we're really excited to have you on the team because I think our clients, our partners, are going to gain some value. So Terry, tell us what you like to do for fun, just so we get a little read on that.
Sure. I know most people probably wouldn't call it fun, but I love building things. My wife and I do a lot of our DIY things, projects around the house, additions, remodeling different historical homes. I also love long-range shooting. That's awesome. That sort of thing, hunting and fishing, being in the outdoors. Anytime I can get a chance to get out in the woods, I'm going to take it.
That's great. And you have a military background as well, right?
Yeah, I'm an Army veteran. I was a combat engineer when I first got out of high school, went into the Army, spent 4 years, toured around, stationed in Germany, deployed to Kuwait, deployed to Bosnia, so got a chance to see a lot of the world as an explosives and demolitions guy.
Well, thank you for your service, Terry. I really appreciate that. We highly value our veterans at our firm. And I just, as we're talking about this, you mentioned something to me a little bit earlier, that inspections are really important to you, and they can be a claims eliminator, which is a great word. And I'm curious to see your thoughts on that. Like, what's so cool about inspections?
Well, a lot of times when the best solution to our risk control problems are the things we're already doing and that we can just plus them up. So pretty much everyone has some form of an inspection protocol. One of the things that people really miss often, though, is they focus on the checklist in their hand and the piece of equipment or the tool or whatever they're inspecting, and they're just interacting with that piece of gear.
Yeah.
But I really promote people to take that as an opportunity to not only look at the gear that you're looking at, the equipment or whatever, but bring in the operators, the people that work with it, so that you're not only connecting with the equipment that you're doing the inspection on, but more importantly, you're connecting with the people that are operating the equipment, and you get a chance to do many different things that we don't really get when we do loss runs or try to do analysis. What you get is the insight that person who puts their hand on that piece of equipment or that tool or that gear, that they have on what is and is not optimal with that piece of gear.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of the difference between a model of something versus actually using it and getting familiar with how it works and how people, in this case, use the equipment, what safety devices might need to be added or changed, or structured differently, or what training needs to be put in place. It sounds like a little bit of that.
Absolutely, because really the opportunity to do inspection of the thing is a bigger opportunity to do a conversation with the person. And in that way, you get to understand what they're thinking about. You get insights into what goes on day to day within the operation. And as you're both looking at this piece of gear, it's a good opportunity to engage in conversations. And that's where we see our biggest return for our effort when it comes to risk reduction and claims reduction.
That's so great. So let's go right after it. I mean, I want to hear some of these claims war stories. So tee one up for us, Terry.
Oh yeah, gosh, you all have been in the business, and if you're an insurance person, then you probably have a treasure chest of these. But here's some ones that I thought really stood out that were linked to kind of how our failure in the inspection and connection was key to this incident coming about. One of them is a material handling piece of equipment that I had to run the investigation on. What we had was a long-term piece of equipment that was stationary, and it moved material from one spot to another, and it was just kind of off by itself. Wasn't under any inspection and had been sitting there for years working, doing its job, but over time, things started to break down. They would do maintenance on it, but the inspection protocol never happened. The physical part of the machine, nor did they have a real connection with the operator or the operators as they worked it, because it was kind of off to the backside of the plant. Anyway, unfortunately, one day it had a catastrophic failure. It actually completely broke all of its foundational welds. It turned over, the machine completely came off of its foundation and ejected the operator, and unfortunately the operator sustained a permanent impairment injury.
Oh my goodness. So the operator was inside the machine.
Right, inside the machine.
Wow.
And during the failure. So this was a failure both of what you would typically call part of the inspection, the looking at the physical things, the welds and the connection. Had you had that in place, you would have seen the cracks starting to form, you'd have seen the paint starting to flake off of the welds, all these things that would lead you to go, maybe we need to do a deeper dive into the structure of this thing.
Yeah, and this is an interesting example, I think, because you get checklists and you can go through and make sure the safety buttons work and all that stuff, and you might do that on a regular basis. But what about the deeper inspection? What about the inspection of the structural integrity and all the different pieces that go into that? That's such a great point.
Absolutely, and you're right, 100%. And every single inspection should be ending with, who did you talk to and what did you talk about? So that you not only are looking at the physical, and then that will prompt you to do something at what we might call the next level of non-destructive testing, because you say, hey, we see these cracks, we see paint flaking off of these welds, we need to get a person in here to do a deeper dive into this. But also, let's talk to the operator, make sure that they're not experiencing any unusual wobbles, vibrations, or anything like that. We missed a chance on both of those fronts to put some stops in front of this really tragic incident.
Yeah, wow, that is interesting. So the fallout of that is you have somebody that's permanently impaired, lost some sort of use of their body, basically, is what that means. And, you know, the ripple effect, give me an idea what the ripple effect was for that company, for that one person being impaired and having that machine down.
Sure. So there's, as you know, there's many different effects for this sort of thing. First of all, is very obvious, the damage to the person, the most important part of the operation, and that's tragic and should have been avoided at all costs. Then you have the damage to the equipment, so the thing was shut down, unable to be moved. You have the loss of production time for whatever that equipment was moving. You had to find an alternative way to move those materials around. But then we also had to do a bunch of things to investigate the real root cause of why why was this thing, was it designed wrong? Was it installed wrong? Where did we find the flaws? And so all that takes time, and then during that time, that area was shut down. So we have a whole, it's like I said, it's a great example to say the ripple effect.
It's almost like it hit a lot of different departments, because I bet they had to find somebody else to operate that machine when it came back up, or may have to do that with the guy being impaired. And it's a fascinating thing. Wow. Yeah, I could see how the cost could add up on that one, Terry.
Well, and then once a machine something like that happens, as you know, workers' comp's exclusive remedy, so you have the cost caps inside of workers' comp, but it opens you up as a business, if you didn't do the proper things, inspections and whatnot, to civil liability as well. And while this particular incident didn't go down that route, during the investigation we had to do a lot of looking at other cases that were similar to prepare ourselves and say, okay, what do we need to know so that if we do have to go down this route, we can present the evidence to say what did go wrong with this piece of equipment.
Now, I don't know if it hit the news or not. Did it hit the news?
No,
You know?
no, it
But if it did, then you would have other things going on, reputation risk, and
Great
some
point.
other pieces, which
Yeah.
is fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, that is a great one. What else do you have for us today? What other kind of claims war stories are you thinking of?
Sure. So a lot of times, the common things we see with personal injuries at the workplace are often a result from not locking out properly. So we're engaging with moving machinery in a way that the machinery is still live and moving. So you should have good lockout protocols, and then you should be inspecting those protocols not only for adequacy within the machine, but to make sure that the people using them are using them consistently. There was an event where we had a part of the machine center where it was clearly signed as a lockout, had guards and cages, all the things that would keep you from interacting with that piece of equipment. But what we didn't do, we did the inspection part of it, and that went great. It was always in good working order. But we failed to do was using those inspections as connection with the people that were operating it to see if they were actually doing the things we wrote down. And unfortunately, we had an individual who, on one of the off shifts, had been using that machine, not locking it out to clear trash out of it. And unfortunately, they had a night where they did what they'd done 100 times before, started pulling trash out of this machine while it was still running. Their hand was caught in the machine, and they sustained, again, another permanent impairment injury.
My goodness. Talk about horrific.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, we did great on looking at the physical.
Yeah.
It was all working great, but we didn't have that connection, that inspection to connection nexus where we talked to the person. And they said, you would get insight into whether they are actually using the lockouts when no one's around watching it.
Yeah, it reminds me, of some of the accounts I worked on as a broker, and we would even talk with companies about like a secret shopper kind of a process.
Yeah.
Right, where you're checking and you're just checking on people, and you can highlight the great things they're doing. But it kind of then gets everybody else excited about that. But also you can catch those guys that are maybe cutting corners before they actually get really injured. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. As I said, in my safety career, I got to tell you, one of the biggest weapons we have against people getting hurt or things getting damaged is making sure that we've got the conversations going with the people who are operating the gear, who are doing the job.
Yep.
Because when it comes down to it, it is the person's decision at the workface that is going to determine whether they do or do not get hurt.
That is such a great point, and this is like two examples now of like a checklist by itself doesn't really do the full job.
Right.
You got to have the process, but you also have to have people trained in the process, educated, reinforcing that information over time. That's such a great point.
100%.
Yeah. I love that. Any other claims, thoughts that you have for us today?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can go on all day with
I'll give
the
you
claims
another.
horror
Let's talk
stories.
about it.
There's, let's see. So we do have one that stands out that I thought was really poignant was there was a upgrade to a system in a boiler. So we have combustible gases, combustible materials that are going through the ventilation. And there was a blower motor installed in line to kind of keep things moving. And they had installed it backwards. So the maintenance people had put this thing in, but instead of it exhausting the combustible gas and materials through the exhaust system to the scrubbers and then the outside, it started blowing it back into another chamber. So within the ventilation system, it built up combustible gas, and of course there was a spark, and it blew the ventilation system apart. Started a small fire and damaged some of the stuff around it. Luckily, in this case, it didn't hurt anybody. But where we failed in this was a multi-shift, multi-team installation, and we didn't do a post-installation inspection to make sure that we got the subject matter experts, the leads in this thing, to go through and say, all right, from A to B to C to D, we've put every bolt in right, we've put all the stuff in correctly. And the other part of it was we again, there was a failure to connect with the people that were doing it and speak to them, even in between the shifts. There was no person-to-person handoff as one shift took over from the next shift.
Yeah.
Continuing the installation of this large ventilation system. So again, it just shows how valuable we can utilize an inspection along with a person-to-person connection to really cover our bases and seal off a lot of those risk exposures that we deal with. And again, the one thing I really like about using this model is you should already have some form of an inspection. And if you add into and make sure that with every inspection you make a connection with people, you're going to get a whole much more information on not only what's going on with that piece of equipment, but also what people are doing in the general in their work environment.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point you bring up, because I, as an insurance broker for many years, would go on inspections with some loss control individuals, and some were really good. But other ones were very dictatorial, let's just call it. And they would sit there and just act like they knew everything, and it would really frustrate the client, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about inspection and connection together, right, it's not about making them look like, or making you look good, or making them look like they're idiots. It's about going, hey, how do we connect with this person? Highlight the stuff they're already doing, and then just add more, right? And really bless them that way. And I think that's such a great approach, Terry.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're all in this together, whether you're the client, the broker, the loss control consultant, the safety professional on site. We have to make sure that we're all working together towards the ultimate goal, which is not making any one person look good or look bad. It is, what is it that we can all look at in this operation and identify those things that can hurt the people that make the business run. That should be the sole focus of these things. Anything else is extraneous. And unfortunately, the safety profession has a responsibility to bear on that, because so many people have been in inspector mode, which means they believe they have a clipboard and a piece of paper, and they go out and they kind of bark at people for demerits that they're going to give them, which is the least effective way. You can spot things doing that, but it's the least effective way to get someone to engage with you, to go the extra mile and not only fix those things, but fix them with a glad heart so that they keep looking at it later on down the road.
Like you're part of the same team.
Yeah, like you're part of the same team.
And, I just think it's really interesting. Nobody knows everything. So getting a few heads around something, having someone like yourself with a bunch of outside experience in different industries coming into a company where they might have promoted from within, have a really good person, but just, what's the extra to take them from good to great, right?
Yeah.
What's the extra to keep that one incident from happening, right? That, we could prevent potentially. And I just think that's such a fun give back to companies. I mean, we're all in business to make money, but if you can be in business to make money and have something really cool to give to somebody that helps, save injuries or save lives or make them more productive, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I guess, like I said, the people that we run into in our, whether we're the broker, whether we're the loss control consultant, whether we're the in-house safety person, those are the people that we're going to be working with for a while to manage the risk of this account, or if it's your internal company, department, whatever. And all that is going to be more effective when we have good working relations, when we get the ego out of the way, when we get everyone looking at the what is the most effective and efficient way to solve the problem. The problem is, how do we keep people from getting hurt? We keep that as our focus. We can take any tool in our toolbox and plus it up with better connections with the people that are utilizing it in the field.
This concept of reverse engineering risk comes to mind as we're talking. And I know your military background, and I've talked to some different vets and yourself as well. And that's kind of a process that they train on in the military as well, as like, here's a scenario that we could be into. How do we train for this? How do we prepare for this? And I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about how that background has helped you and kind of how you implement that in, because I know that's been a common theme for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really, especially early in my career, got to lean heavily on my military background to assist when I began as a safety professional. And the things that played into it were, one, starting with situational awareness. It's something that as a combat trooper you're taught, and you have to teach it and teach it and teach it again, because no matter what you are doing, you will tend to narrow your focus to the point where you're at your work and kind of let the stuff around you flow by.
I see.
You can't do that as a military person. You have to be aware of what you're doing and then what's being done around you. And that's no different than the people that are in the work.
Yeah.
People that get hurt by people who are above, below, to the side, to behind them. You have to have your situational awareness encompassing all the stuff, not just your little section of the world. So that's the first thing.
So when you walk into a room, let me ask you this quick question. What is it that you do with your military training that might be a little bit different than someone like me who hasn't been trained that way?
Well, I mean, it's just my habit to look at the entire room as I walk in, walk through, notice the things that may be important to me if the situation inside the room changes or in the area. So I'm looking for, where are people? Where are they doing? Where is equipment? What is it doing? Where are my paths of travel? Where's my paths of exit?
Yeah.
If I need that. What are the things that are above me, below me, to the side, and around me, so that as I'm walking through, I can have that kind of catalog in the back of my head and say, okay, let's make sure we're looking at forklifts, or we're looking at, is there welding activity going on? Do we have a fire potential? That sort of thing.
That is so cool, because I can see that applying to a lot of different industries. I mean, every day something can be different in your environment, but there are specific industries where their environments change all the time. I think of in-home care. These people are going into other people's homes, and it's always a different place, or outdoor salespeople or whatever. And that by itself could just be a really interesting thing to kind of practice, because it makes you aware as a person too, right?
Right, and it's, you take that skill set and you can apply it to, clearly, all the examples you just gave, but things like defensive driving. As teenagers, begin to drive, one of the biggest things that you have to teach them is to not just look through the little bit of the window that they're seeing, but they have to look on the sides to make sure that things aren't coming to them. They're learning how to operate that vehicle in a group of other vehicles being operated. So it's applicable to just about everything we do, no matter how young we are, how old we are. And it really is just to make sure you're not falling into the habit of lazy observation, where you're not looking for things, where you're just kind of focused on yourself, or God forbid, just sitting there focusing on that little glowing screen we all carry with us.
So I kind of got you off track probably a little bit, but situational awareness was one. Is there some other things we should keep in mind?
Yeah, situational awareness. So that's kind of your foundation. The other thing too, I think, is really translates over from a military background is, the ability to adapt in a dynamic environment. Almost no plan survives execution. So if you have the skill to and the experience of working through a plan that is dynamic, and as it goes forward changes and you have to adjust to those changes, that's going to serve you well, as almost everything that we do, whether it's a construction project, whether it's a maintenance project, whether it's anything, the things you plan for will be about 80% of the things you experience. And then there's that 20% of God only knows what's going to happen. So you got to be able to take it, process it, react to it, or not react to it at all.
We might term that like safety muscle memory or something like that, right? Where it's kind of instinctive a little bit. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to put it. You've loaded it into muscle memory, and that's why people who have to operate in high risk and high stress environments train so repeatedly.
Yeah.
Because repeated training is what gives you muscle memory, so that when you are in a stressful environment or a high stress environment, you will know what to do. Because there's an interesting thing. This came out of the military as well. We were training to do what's called CQB, so close quarters battle, which is this cool SWAT stuff you see, people coming into rooms and trying to pacify the room. But there's a physiological thing that happens when your adrenaline hits you.
Okay.
And that is all the stuff that we're sitting here and we can think about and we reason through, that all goes away. There's a literal biochemical switch that gets flipped in your brain when adrenaline hits.
Okay.
Because when you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, you don't need to worry about higher end thinking, processing other things. It's just very basic things you need to do. Run, hide, fight, right?
Fight, flight. Yep, I got you.
So that translates into, if you're in a high stress environment and you have not repeatedly trained what you're supposed to do in a evacuation drill, in a response to an emergency situation drill, in your manufacturing, let's say, or in construction, you will panic and you will not be able to reason through it. And I'll give you an example. We've all experienced this, because some people, when I tell them this, they're like, nah, I could probably reason through it. I'm a smart guy. Absolutely. But I bet you every single one of us have experienced this, where you've been in an altercation, a verbal altercation with a friend, a partner, or a spouse, whatever, and it got heated. And then you part ways, and about 10-15 minutes after you've had that little heated exchange, what comes into your mind is, oh, if I'd have just said that, I would have really burnt that person. I'd have really made them cry, or whatever you're looking for, right? And it's because after that adrenaline wears off, you then can re-access those higher order thinking and think through things. In the heat of the moment, you can't.
Yeah, you get kind of shell shocked sometimes, or you say stupid things.
Yeah, you just operate on instinct.
That is so good. And I think what this is reinforcing as we're kind of talking through these things is you can drill and you can do your checklists every once a year, once a quarter, or whatever it is. But the safety training has to be relational. It has to be interactive. And we have to consider things might change on the fly.
Right.
So we got to train people to be agile and have that safety muscle memory. That's really important. And I think that just reinforces having, what we're bringing to the table at Fortify, which is fun, is that outside in perspective. So it's like, hey, this is how we've been doing this the whole time. And then Terry comes in and he goes, okay, well, that's great, but I got a couple ideas. What if we did it this way?
Sure.
What if we try this? And it's like, okay, we're stress testing that system to make it better, right? It's not to point out you didn't do this right. It's just like, hey, everyone wants to get better. The best always are trying to get better. It's called continuous improvement. So I think, that continuous improvement mindset in the safety world is so huge. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely, yeah. Because we nothing, no matter what you're into, is ever going to remain static. Even if you're a manufacturer with a set and static line of manufacturing processes versus something that's more dynamic, like let's say commercial construction. Right. No matter what, you're going to have things change over time, and you have to have that skill set of, okay, this just happened. I didn't expect it to happen. let's see what we need to do to deal with it. And that's done only through practice. And again, I'll go back to what we started with, and that is you will have all these opportunities to train people on how to react to the unexpected, and it's all through conversation. So when you're doing your inspections, making sure that you have that connection with people, and those conversations is how you train them to do the right thing when stress is high and things go off the rails. So
That's how we get our safety superstars, our safety heroes, right? The people like, what was that guy's name on the airplane? I'm trying to remember it now. Sully Sullivan, right? I mean, the guy trained 1,000,000 times, and then when he needed it, it was muscle memory.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And under stress too.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Well, we've really enjoyed just getting a peek inside the brain of Terry Evans. It's a sharp guy, lots of experience. We're really glad to have him on our team. Hopefully, you've gained some great insights here and some ideas that you can apply. And Terry, I'll just kind of give you kind of the last word on safety. So give us kind of a principle or something that you want to leave us with.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm so excited by what we're doing here at Fortify. I think this is an amazingly not only effective but novel approach to risk management and risk control. I've gone full circle coming out of the military. I started as a heavy believer in making sure the checklists and the rules and everything is written just right. And as I've experienced, over the last nearly 3 decades of safety, I really realized that while that is valuable to have that information, the biggest bang for your buck is always going to be making those connections with the people that are on the workforce, because they're the ones you have to influence. They're the ones that have the knowledge of what you're going to be doing and what they're facing. So every time you go out and start looking at something, make sure you're talking to someone about it, and not another person in management, someone who's on the floor, because you'll get so much insight from that activity that will never show up on a checklist.
That's so good. Terry, thank you for being part of the Strategic Mind podcast. It's been a real pleasure to just talk with you and just get some great learning insights into what your career's been about and what you're doing for us now. We're glad to have you on the team. Thank you for listening today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next podcast. God bless you, stay safe, and have a good one.